can see it in them. And then when I love it because I build them up and then I cut their legs out from underneath them because they look at me, and at that moment, as brokers, I'm their hero. And then I let them know, and then this is what happens. Hey, this is Matt, and I'm here with Dan Wise, and we are doing a podcast on basically what Dan is doing currently after prison, and how he's basically turned his prison experience into an actual cottage industry. Is that right? Cottage industry? That's the right term. Yeah. So basically, it's yeah. So Dan's going to talk about being a prison consultant. He's a prison consultant, which I think is super cool. And it's kind of like what like I do like speeches, and I do like fraud prevention. Different speeches and different go to different stuff for the Department of Banking and Finance in different states, and mortgage broker conventions. Same type of thing. Only you actually do Dan actually does prison consulting on how to mitigate your sentence, or your exposure to a large sentence, or
a little bit of everything. So my name's Dan Wise, federal prison consultant, RDAP Dan on YouTube. But it basically started because of my federal prison stint. Prior to going to federal prison, from the time I got indicted, or actually from the time that I was under federal investigation when I knew about it, to the time I went to prison, was a span from 2011 till 2014. And that time of not knowing, because I was out on bond that entire time, the thoughts that go through your head, the sleepless nights, the anxiety of not knowing what's next. And my only comparison to anything prison related was stuff that I've seen on TV,
right.
Locked Up Abroad, or the TV show Oz. I don't remember Oz. Yeah. So this is my thoughts of prison. So when I knew that there was a good chance that I was going, I'm like, how do I tell my kids this? I had this part always chokes me up, but I had a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, 2 girls at the time. And to every child, at least for fathers that are in their child's lives, you're Superman, you can't do anything wrong. And when I had to tell them, not only did I make these mistakes, which I didn't take accountability until I got to prison, but I blamed the government and blamed this. But needless to say, I had to tell my kids that I'm going to prison. For at this time, it could have been anywhere from 7 to 20 years before I was sentenced. And they didn't really understand. It was kind of like the brakes got pumped in their head. They just didn't know what that really meant. And every day that I was out on pretrial, and people were like, well, at least you got to spend all this time out, versus people that get locked up right away. There's good and bad on both sides of that. The bad being out that entire time is your friends are like, hey, we're going to go on a ski trip. Do you want to go? We're going to Vail next month. And it's like, I don't know where my life is going to be next month.
Right.
So these thoughts of not knowing what was next, and didn't understand how important like the pre-sentence interview was. I didn't understand how important letters to the judge. I didn't understand how explaining to your family, taking accountability. I didn't understand how much this played a role in what your overall sentence can be. In the federal prison system, you have your sentencing guidelines, but unless you have a minimum mandatory, the judge has the ability. They're advisory guidelines. The judge can go below or above these. And if somebody actually prepares properly and knows how to mitigate and knows how to prepare for the judge, what type of letters they should write, what RDAP is, the Residential Drug Abuse Program. Just because you have a substance abuse problem doesn't mean you're automatically going to qualify for the program. This all needs to be documented and needs to be within 12 months prior to your indictment. There's so many small moving parts that if you miss one of these parts, when you're actually sitting in prison, that one little piece of the puzzle that you missed could throw a chink in the entire game plan that you had, and it could throw everything into a disarray. So going through this whole process and coming out of prison on the other side, and started posting videos on YouTube, just talking about my own experience on what I wish I'd done differently, how I wish I'd been more accountable, how I wish I told my kids the truth instead of just blaming everybody else.
Right.
Because it creates fear. Now it's telling your kids to fear the government, fear authority. And we already have enough of that going around.
Right.
So changing my whole thought process around this, and then starting seeing the viewer responses and getting responses from criminal defense attorneys, it kind of made me so thankful that I went through this, but it also put this giant responsibility on my shoulders, because now here I am talking the talk. I got to make sure that I maintain,
right.
And doing the prison consulting, it's not like the movie Get Hard with Will Ferrell and
right.
Kevin Hart. I wish it was that fun, but the career aspect of it was an accident. I'm blessed to be able to make a living at what I do, but the passion came from being such a fuck up and a manipulator early on, and being able to use the same manipulating skills that were already there and redefining it and now using it for good. I don't mind manipulating somebody as long as nobody's getting hurt in the process. If it's going to help you,
right,
I'll manipulate you all day long. But if it's only going to gather me further, what's the word I'm looking for here? Matt, help me out. If it's only going to further my own benefit,
your own agenda, yeah,
then you're doing it for the wrong reasons. If you do things for the right reason, everything else kind of falls in place.
Right.
There's my opening spiel.
Okay, so
take a breath, Dan.
So but I mean, a lot of the people that contact you, like they're looking at like once, so like for instance, like a downward departure, right? I mean, I get that part of it is people being scared about just going to prison. Like, what am I going to expect? Like what they're expecting something, and you have to go in and say, look, that's not what's going to happen. You're going to end up, you're not going to a pin,
right? You're
going to go to a low, and you'll probably end up going to a camp. And then you kind of explain what's expected when you first go in, what to say, what not to say.
A little bit. Yeah.
Okay. But then the other aspect is trying to get like, what can we do at sentencing to help get you the lowest sentence possible, right? Like that's my understanding from talking to you before, but maybe I'm wrong.
In a nutshell, yeah. So when, of course, that's what you just said is the origin of someone's fear is what they're afraid to go to prison because of prison TV. I spend 5 minutes in the conversation saying, look, you're going to go to a prison camp. 99% of my clients are white collar, first time nonviolent offenders. I've dealt with a lot of well-known high profile celebrities. I don't usually, somebody's not going to call me if they've been in and out of the prison system. They already know what time it is. They already know what to expect. They don't know what they could be doing different. They already have the mindset of, I know everything. I don't need anybody else's help. So for somebody like, let's say you got in trouble for the very first time, you might be fearful of prison. And I'll be like, Matt, look, you're a nonviolent first time offender. You did tax fraud. You're going to go to a prison camp.
Right.
There's not going to be really much violence there. So don't worry about that. But what we can start doing right now, and let's say you're an attorney and you're going to go, well, should I go out and start doing community service? You should do community involvement, but every nonviolent first-time white-collar offender is doing community service. So if you're an attorney, we could have you do something like go back to the college that you graduated and speak to the pre-law students that are going through and tell them about a cautionary tale of how you were once sitting in that same chair as them, thinking you're going to have this longevity career as an attorney who turned left instead of right, made this seemingly unimportant mistake, and now you're going to prison. You just lost your entire career over maybe putting some extra money in your pocket.
Right.
So speaking to these students can change their flight path to where when they come across that fork in the road, they might remember your story. And the judge sees that. You might initially do it because you want to impress the judge. But really what happens is when you start getting the response from these people, you're like, fuck, this is like heartwarming. Yeah. And yes, it will affect the judge as well, because now the judge sees that you're giving back to your community and you're also potentially preventing somebody else from making the same mistake as yours. So that's part of it. The narratives, the character reference letters, huge role in the whole aspect. When somebody says, well, I've got my letters already written. I've got like 50 letters written from judges, from friends, from police officers, governors. If you've got more than 3 or 4 letters, reference letters, you think the judge is going to read those letters? Come on.
No,
he's not.
No.
And your letters, these letters, people put the effort they put into it is just like these glorifying, like, oh, Matt's such a good guy. He helps old ladies across the street.
Yeah.
Gets cats out of trees. He, visits me in the hospital when I'm sick. You want to focus on the negatives that you did. What led you to this? If you're married, your wife is now your victim of your crime. She never married you thinking, I'm getting ready to marry this guy who one day is going to leave me and my family high and dry and go to prison. So taking the accountability and realizing that it's not poor you. You made the stupid fucking choice that put yourself here. Did you think you were going to go to prison? Probably not. But needless to say, knowing what you know now, you probably could have taken a different path looking back. So it's teaching somebody how to rethink and re-educate themselves so they can mentally prepare for the journey, not so much the prison. The prison part's the easy part.
Yeah.
It really is for a nonviolent first-time offender. You're away from your family for a little bit. Food's not as good, but you get in shape, you learn a lot about yourself. The hard part is mentally adjusting to this new lifestyle.
Yeah. I remember when I was about to be sentenced, I remember saying to another inmate, saying, man, I don't think I can do this. And he goes, well, you don't have to. And I go, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, that's the great thing about it. He goes, they're going to make you do it. He goes, so it's effortless on your part. You're going to get through it. They'll make you do the time. So don't stop worrying about, can I do this? I can't do this. He goes, oh, you're doing it. He goes, you just have to figure out how to entertain yourself while you're there.
Right.
And I was just thinking, the thing you were talking about where you go and speak with, students, it's funny because like I'll go and speak with mortgage brokers or mortgage brokerage businesses. And actually, I want to say, is it the 11th or 12th of this month? And like in the middle of the month sometime, I have to check my calendar, but I'm actually going to speak with, I think it's, the guy's got 30 mortgage brokers and it's a Tampa-based brokerage business. Is it 10 or 15? I think it maybe 20. I don't know how many he's got. He's got about 15 or 20 brokers. And I'm going to go there and I go in and I tell him my story. I say, look, I was a mortgage broker, just like you. And my very first thing I did, it was 1 30-day late on a verification of rent on a VOR. It was harmless. I mean, to me, it was so harmless. And then it just ballooned up and I started explaining. The nice thing is you see someone just like you saying, this is what happened. At least then when you're in that crucial moment, hopefully those guys look back and go, man, I remember that guy saying, right, that guy said, and keep in mind, these are brokers. They've all done something probably already. Those are students who they're still innocent. Like if they were lawyers now, they'd be thinking, oh, there was that one time.
This guy just whited out something yesterday.
Right. They might hit home. Like you think that's nothing. You think that's a joke. But let me tell you, it very quickly balloons into something that is beyond your control and you absolutely cannot let the air out of. You get so enveloped by fraud that you can't back your way out of it. It's just too late. And that's the whole thing is I get to go and I do that. And I love doing those. I love doing those because when I do them, I'm great during the talk about the fraud because I love talking about fraud. It's in my bones. I love it.
Because you're reliving. It's revigorating. It's like you're doing it.
It is.
Without doing it.
I enjoy it. I can feel the adrenaline and the endorphins running through me. And then when I get to the very end, and what happens is great because when I talk to these guys, you can see it in their eyes. They love it. They're like, yeah, he's talking about it. Like, I know what he's talking about. I can feel, even if it's not fraud, it's just like being, a loan officer and the customers and this. And, that's how he got around that. Wow, I had that same thing a week ago, and I didn't do that. He did it. I didn't, but we would go back and forth. Or I'm sorry, I go on and you can see it in them. And then when I love it because I build them up and then I cut their legs out from underneath them because they look at me. And at that moment, as brokers, I'm their hero. And then I let them know, and then this is what happens. You lose your wife. You lose your kid. You lose this. You lose your freedom. You lose every fucking thing. Everything that you thought was important. You lose all of it. You end up walking out of prison at 50, starting with $6 million in fucking debt, a son that won't talk to you. You're lucky. I was lucky to get out in enough time to watch my mother die. That was a gift. That was a gift that I thank God for, that I was able to spend 2 years with my dying mother. That's how fucking pathetic it goes. From whiting out a 30-day late to thanking God that you get to hold your mother's hand when she takes her last fucking breath. All because you thought it was a harmless mistake. Listen, every time I go over that, I see grown men fucking tearing up and crying. Your kids don't talk to you. Your friends that you made hundreds, if not millions of dollars for, won't take your phone calls. Your good buddies that you went on vacation with, all turn on you. I mean, it's a reality check. So when I do those things, I do them, and I walk out every time. Fucking tears, fucked up, sad, upset. But I do it because I know I wish somebody had done that for me. Like, it's just, and then that's what I'm saying is like you going to these guys and telling them, get your fucking head right. Take this opportunity, go to prison, take this opportunity, try and mitigate, your circumstance. Because let's face it, the sentences they're giving out are draconian. Right. So, to me, that's noble. I mean, obviously you have to pay for it. You have to you have to charge. You're not going to be mowing yards for a fucking living. You have to pay your bills. But I mean, I think that's a great I think that's a great business. I think that's a great thing to be able to be doing.
But don't you find it also therapeutic? Like it's a daily reminder of, because I feel like I'm always like one choice away from doing something that would be easy, like doing the things that sent me to prison to begin with.
Oh yeah.
And talking to these people about what they're going through. It's almost like reliving it myself, going back through it. And it's a constant reminder of what I had to go through to get to this point. And we talked about earlier in another video, we're talking about the RDAP wristbands.
Right.
You know, I kept mine because I'm not wearing it today because I'm not wearing it for some reason, but usually I wear it and it's a reminder of I don't want to go back to that old lifestyle and how easy it is to do fraud and make mistakes. You know, and listening to you talk about it right now, you know, you can see the empathy you have for what you've lost that you can't get back. How many times did you hear guys in prison that were living in penthouses and they were driving Bentleys and they're like, I'd give all this shit away and live in a 1-bedroom apartment right now just to have my life back, not my money back, but my family, what things that you can't get back time.
Right.
You just can't.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm happier now than I ever was when I had $3 or $4 million sitting in the bank account somewhere and millions of dollars worth of real estate. I'm way happier now. I wouldn't trade that for anything, you know, or trade this for I wouldn't trade this for that. But boy, let me tell you something. If I even think about all my family members and what it did to my family and to my friends and everything else, like that tears me apart. That's the part that bothers me. Losing that stuff doesn't mean a fucking thing. Like losing all that stuff, I could care less. You know,
they had no idea you were doing this stuff when you were doing it?
No, my father, it was the only time in my life that my father thought was truly proud of me. And it was a complete illusion. Like he thought I was the pinnacle of success. Remember, we were at a family dinner one time and he would lend me money to flip houses. He'd give me 80 grand. I'd give him back 110. 3 months later, he'd give me 45,000. I'd give him back 70 grand. 3 months later, he was like, Jesus, this is the best investment I've ever had. Like, this is like, you know, this is amazing. This kid here, he's like, you're the best investment I've ever had. Like hearing him say that was just like, I mean, you know, I would even wait sometimes. He'd lend me like 50 grand. I'd sell the house and I knew I was going to give him a check back for like 72 grand. Like it had only been like 3, maybe 4 months. And I'd wait. I'd hold the check until it was a family dinner. And I'd go and we'd all be talking and this and this and this. And he'd go, how's business going? I go, oh, it's good. I just sold that. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, Dad. Hold on. Here's that check I owe you. $72,000. And he would look at it and be like, gave this kid 50 grand 4 months ago. Who makes that kind of return? And the look on his face, the pride.
Yeah,
but it was all fraud. It was all a fraud.
You're lucky he never got roped into it.
Yeah. But no, those were flipping houses. That was legitimately I was buying a house, fixing it up and selling it. But what I'm saying is like it was all a fraud. So my father being proud of me was based on a fraud. That's a horrible feeling.
Yeah.
So, but
jeez.
But yeah.
He's sweating over here.
I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry.
The camera guys are crying.
No, there's not. Colby's jaded. Colby hates me. He would. I could say nothing to Colby. He's like, this guy. He's calling me at 2 o'clock. He's calling me at 11:30 at night saying, hey, can you put a white line around this guy? And he's like, yeah, let me take the thumbnail down and put a white line around it to make you feel warm and fuzzy. I'll do that right now. Okay, thanks, Colby. Yeah. This fucking guy in the white line. Can you make Dan a little smaller and make me bigger?
You should charge me less because I won't give you the same type of headaches.
Like that's what I'll tell. He'll do a thumbnail where we're both there like side by side, and I'll be like, can you make me bigger and put Dan behind me and make him smaller? He'll be like, you narcissistic prick. Sure, Matt, no problem. I was going to do that anyway. I was talking to my wife about that, and we decided that was the way to go. Thanks. This guy. He turns to his wife
Such a
and goes,
noob.
this guy.
Such a noob.
I might as well put the white line around him because he's going to call back in an hour. So yeah, Colby doesn't care. Colby's he's completely jaded. He's over me.
Got it.
The first month he was like, this is a pretty cool guy. Then he got to know me. He's past it now. He knows the truth. So, What are we doing? So tell me what else? What else? I mean, like, do you have anything specific? Like somebody was supposed to get 5 years,
Yeah,
and
because
I know you've got like 50 of those. We've talked. The problem is we've talked about this,
right? And so you always forget to bring up the good stuff on the channel,
right? You'll walk away, and I'll be thinking
on my channel. I've got a couple of videos of. I had one guy. He was looking at. He originally had a minimum mandatory 60 months, and going back and forth with his attorney. Somehow his attorney never brought up the fact, or at least never mentioned to him, that he qualified for a safety valve. You're familiar with safety valve?
Yeah.
So I said, well, you're a first-time nonviolent offender, and you don't have a leadership role on this. You're just involved. I was like, how come you don't qualify for safety valve? He goes, well, what is safety valve? I said, well, if you qualify for safety valve, technically the judge can go under the minimum mandatory. So he calls his attorney, asks him about safety valve. His attorney's like, oh yeah, you qualify for that. He's like, well,
why aren't we pushing for it?
When are you going to bring this up to me? He goes, oh, we were going to mitigate this at sentencing. And I was like, okay, maybe he was, but these are things that you mitigate for your mindset to stop you from wanting to jump off a fucking ledge.
Right.
When I think about the thoughts that I wanted to kill myself and wanted to go on the run, and now looking back at what I actually went through, it wasn't nearly that bad. I had manifested it so much worse than the actual scenario really was. Like you said, I wish I had somebody to walk me through that process, because I demonized it. I was like, I'm going to get turned out, raped, shanked, in prison.
Right.
So helping these guys go through this kid actually, his name is Jameson. He had a 60-month minimum mandatory, found out about the safety valve, went back and forth with his narrative, his reference letters. I had him, he did a little over 5,000 community service hours at very specific, he was a minister that siphoned money through a church group. So he started going to these different ministries throughout the United States, speaking to the staff on how easy it is to steal money and how this can ruin your life.
Right.
He went through the same process.
And I'm about to go to jail.
And he's about to go to jail. And at sentencing, the prosecution was after, I think they downward departure, asking for the minimum side of the guidelines once the minimum mandatory is removed, was like 36 months. And he ended up getting probation. Well, he got 5 years supervised release. 6 months supervised release followed by 60 months probation. So no prison time. He got time served. So when he had to actually turn himself in, get booked, that was his one time. The prosecution was against this. The prosecution fought it. The judge said, you know what? I'm not going to rule on this today. I'm going to take all this in. We're going to reconvene. I think he had court was like a month later after a sentencing date. They changed it to a month out. Judge came back and said, I don't see any reason to sentence this guy to prison. He has learned his lesson and he's done so much. Sending him to prison isn't going to do anything good for the community. He's helping the community.
Right.
So he never would have done any of these things. So the credit is only mine for putting the seed there. But he picked up the pieces and ran with it. And that's the thing is I can help you and create the tools, but without that, you're just not going to know what to do. And this is what we help achieve for our clients is we put them in the most desirable situation to receive the best possible outcome. And what that outcome might be, we just don't fucking know at the time.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to end it there, or
that's really if anybody's going through a process right now, if they're indicted, if they're under federal investigation, we have free consultations. There's zero obligation to hire me. And you might not take anything away from the consultation, or you might have a conversation with me, go, fuck, I learned something very valuable that I can now bring back to my attorney. Attorney accountability is huge. Knowing what to say to your attorney, how to ask questions to your attorney so you're not bullied by your attorney, that's part of the process. And if somebody's willing to put themselves through it, people helping people, communities method, one day at a time.
All right. So if you like the video, do me a favor and subscribe to the channel, hit the bell. Definitely check out RDAP Dan's channel, which is RDAP Dan on YouTube. And we're going to leave a link for his channel in the description. And if Colby will remember, and if Dan will stay on Colby, we'll leave his email address or however to contact you. Is that it's on your channel too, but still.
Yeah, I'll leave it all for him.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. So it'll all be there, and see ya.